Welcome, Joe. Welcome, Carl. Here we are in the hand of God in Los Gatos, drunk on software.
Need a little more data. We're in downtown Los Gatos at the Los Gatos High School, and we were just trying to find a place to sit. And we saw this big sculpture of a hand doing this.
Beautiful.
And we're in it.
Yes, we are.
Chair.
It is a perfect chair. So, maybe just give a little bit of background to our viewers about who you guys are, what you do. We'll start with Carl.
Okay. My name is Carl Quinn. I do Java. I'm part of the Java Posse podcast. If these listeners aren't familiar with that.
We should have started with that. This is actually half of the Java Posse we have here. We tried to get we tried to get the entire Java Posse, but I guess some of them actually have to work.
Yeah. I'm sort of snuck out for lunch. We're very near where I work, so it's not hard.
And I'm a contractor and I work from home, so I can do whatever the hell I want.
You're billing right now?
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm billing.
$200 an hour.
That's right.
Just wandering around.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. So, I think we wanted to start with, talking about, you guys are pretty involved in the Java community. You guys even have your own session at Java 1, which I missed this year. So bummed about that.
This is the best year we've ever had.
Was it?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was because I wasn't there.
More free beer every time.
That's
right.
fantastic. Yeah, so I was bummed to miss that, but so I was kind of wondering, what are the exciting things going on in the Java community, Java world these days?
Well, maybe the biggest hyped thing right now going on with a lot of press and momentum is Java FX.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Definitely.
Interesting language, and it seems like Sun has finally, a year or two ago, figured out, okay, we need to figure out how to solve the UI problem, right?
Yeah.
How to have a simple language for developers to
It's
do
great
UI.
that they realized that was a need that needed filling.
It's funny because they've realized that they need to have good UI several times now, and I think each time is in reaction to some big momentum happening in the market. So it's probably not. I mean, I don't work for or speak for Sun, but it's probably not a coincidence that Java FX is very similarly named to another technology called FX. And it has a similar sort of feel to its technology and capability set. So I think in a lot of ways Sun is it's reactionary, or just the Java community is reactionary to other big things happening, which not in a dumb way, but in a that's becoming a really popular, valuable way of doing UI. So let's see if we can apply the Java platform to it. So it's not. I don't think it's in any way evil, but it is. It's definitely reactionary.
They're looking at where the market demands are and following, maybe a little behind, but.
Do you think with the Oracle acquisition, we'll see them be more proactive?
Well, I think Larry's already working on rewriting OpenOffice.
Yeah, he said
Sweet.
he had gotten halfway through rewriting the charting engine in Java FX. I'm putting my sunglasses back on. I apologize.
It's warm out here.
In the hand of God,
the
sun shines on us.
So beyond Larry's
Hold
predictions,
hands,
do you guys have a sense of where?
Hold hands. I'm slow.
Yeah.
Is this our Larry moment?
Yeah, Larry.
Larry flew over our podcast a few days ago. No, do you think there's going to be a real impact, or will it be status quo for the Java community?
You mean the Oracle acquisition?
Yeah.
Well, it's rife for speculation. I think if nothing else, and I've been pretty frank about feelings about the business of Sun. Oracle is a well-oiled machine in terms of business execution, according to real business objectives, and they know how to make money.
They know how to make money.
If nothing else, it's going to turn a lot of the things that Sun have been doing just effectively pro bono for the market. They'll be either turning them into objective-based revenue kinds of things, or they'll be killing them. And I think that's really, really helpful. There's so much great technology from Sun. If they have a business strategy to monetize it, it could be a great thing. So I think it's great.
I think Oracle also has a very focused developer community, right? So they know, it's like Microsoft, developers. So they know how to get developers building apps that use their products and their services, and Oracle database apps and middle tier pieces. And so I think they're just going to continue that. And I don't see any reason to kill everything. There's a lot of overlap in their product lines already.
Yeah, they don't need to.
So over time, they evolve things and merge things together.
Totally. Yeah, they kind of have a history of not just going off and killing stuff, but letting things compete. And I think that also helps build the company and make products better, because you even have the internal competition.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's not fun if you're working on one of those teams competing with other people in your own company.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be frustrating.
But I think it does probably result in better products in the end.
I doubt that they're going to kill much. I mean, just personally, most of the things that you really hear about from Sun are probably perfectly fine. You know, they were probably targeted as part of the acquisition. The head scratcher are all the things that you rarely hear about. All these teams doing labs kind of stuff that, you know, Sun traditionally spends so much money on that kind of stuff that doesn't really see the light of day. And that, those guys should probably be worried.
Well, maybe Oracle wants to be more like Xerox did with Park and have this research division, and maybe that group at Sun can become, you know, Oracle's research group. I mean, even IBM does that, right?
If Larry could figure out a way to make money through that strategy, which I don't think Xerox really did.
No, I guess Xerox is not a good example of how to make money off.
Not how to make money, but I mean the innovation was
how
unreal.
to create cool innovation that other people can make money off of. They've done that.
They did a great job.
But IBM does that too. They invest a lot in research.
They do.
In all different areas. All over the country, all over the world probably. They have research centers.
But IBM's also of a much larger scale. That is a really, really big company that needs to do that just for the, you know, for the line items in their statements.
But don't you think Oracle's approaching that scale, that they need to, if they're going to address that market and be a competitive player with IBM and Microsoft?
In terms of market cap and company size, not really, not yet, but
same ballpark.
But yeah, they're trying to get there. Yes. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah.
Cool. That was a good debrief on what's happening in the Java ecosystem.
Well, there's a lot of other stuff happening too. So JavaFX is probably the one that's pushed from a press perspective. It's also probably the one that's the most interest to your.
Yeah, well, and it's too bad we don't have Tor with us because we could really dive into some details there.
Yeah, Tor knows it inside out. Well, he knows it in terms of the language and the technology.
Yeah.
There's other stuff too. I mean, the expansion of Java into really being a platform supporting a bunch of languages is really becoming real, more real.
Yeah. That's big.
You know, Scala is huge. You know, the JRuby.
What do you guys think about James Strachan's comments about Scala?
That was interesting. So he's the Groovy guy, right?
Yeah, he created Groovy.
Worked on Groovy, yeah.
And his comments were, for those of you that weren't reading anything on the web over the last few weeks, he basically came out and said that if Scala had existed when he wrote Groovy, he would have never written Groovy.
I think he kind of came back and softened it a little bit later, saying, "Oh, I didn't mean to say that Groovy is bad, but there was, you know, he saw a need at the time to have a language like that had more dynamic typing. So he wanted to do, you know, late bound type dynamic typing, more scriptability. If Scala had been there, maybe he wouldn't have seen the need and wouldn't have gotten started.
Wouldn't have been a huge hole.
There would have been no pain there.
Yeah.
But Scala takes a different approach with the statically typed. Everything's done at compile time and resolved, and it's very ingenious.
The way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
there still is a place for dynamically typed
for sure.
For quick scripting. It's hard to beat it.
Yeah. So I'm pretty interested in this. I think Scala breathes a lot of needed life back into the Java ecosystem.
Yeah.
But where's it really going? You guys, do you have any feeling on if this is really going to be a significant part of the Java platform and Java community in the future, or is this just going to be something that hardcore geeks love because it's really cool and doesn't really catch on broadly?
I got to say something, because I'm not a coder anymore. I don't really write code. I know how, but I despise it, so I don't do it.
Me too, Joe.
Yeah. I honestly believe that Scala is really the next language of the platform. I think Java effectively will phase out in terms of usage, and I think people will be using Scala for new projects. And just because it does all the same stuff as Java, but then it has all these other things that make it easy where you need it to be easy, and then it does all these functional things where you need things to be massively multi-threaded and scalable. Yeah. I think it's going to evolve into that's what everybody uses. You write your app in Scala.
You can almost see it as, you know, Java being the C of the platform and Scala being the C++. Right?
Do you think there's a financial motive that'll drive that? Because it seems like whenever a new technology, I mean, businesses invest in these things because they believe it's going to give them some benefit.
It's not a huge jump is the main thing. If you already are invested in Java and you're using all this Java, you know, your stack is Java, you can use it right now. I think
you run Scala C, you get a jar and you run it, and it integrates with all your existing Java code. Runs on your JVMs that you're deploying and monitoring, and it's just another Java app.
Yeah, so could you just view it as the next version of the language in a way?
In a way, yeah, I think so.
You're in an IT shop, and
I don't know if it will take over as being sort of the base language for the JVM. So we need something that's sort of a least common denominator in effect, and Java fits that role. There's a few fundamental language things that are in Scala And in a lot of the other languages like Groovy and JRuby, so closures and things like that, that Java doesn't have. They make it hard to bridge.
That the
between
Java
them.
community has wanted for a long time.
But if Scala can kind of pave the way for here's how to do this in a static way on the JVM,
Right.
and then provide hooks so that Java apps can get at the closures, maybe not in a Java syntax way, but at least the JVM supports it, and the hotspot knows how to compile them and handle.
Yeah.
So there is JSR, the what's it called, the method handles. So
Right.
that whole
Yeah.
JSR is looking very promising.
Is it method handles or method references?
I think they're called method handles. So
Okay.
Yeah, it is kind of.
it's the language features for that. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
It might be 292.
It's some number.
Yeah,
Probably
always.
3 digits.
Three-digit number,
three-digit
and
number.
the 200s.
Yeah, and the 2 or 300s.
Exactly.
So do you think that Oracle is going to need to stand behind Scala for it to be successful, or is it already beyond the level of really needing the vendor to get behind it?
I think it's got momentum on its own. There's a big community. A lot of it's academic,
Yeah.
and a lot of people from the functional world have, Haskell people in that area really like that direction of the language movement. But to get commercial traction, it would really help if Oracle stood behind it. At least said, yes, it's a standard language, and they can kind of support it in the PR and the marketing materials and make easy downloads for it, things like that. Just to make it part of the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I agree. I think that Oracle will have to really embrace it, but I think that they will. Oracle's not going to choose it based on the technology. They're going to choose it based on customer demand and direction. And I will bet that it's going to go that way. You'll see JavaFX, at least for the Java platform, you'll see JavaFX doing all the UIs, other than just pure web API
And ADF,
stuff.
ADF and
Yeah.
or JSF and
Yeah, not ADF. JSF.
JSF.
Well, ADF is
Oracle's
JSF.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So you can grab Nippian's 271 right now and have Scala support, Groovy support, and JavaFX support, all in your IDE.
Right. But I'm thinking Scala is going to be everything on the back end, and FX will be everything on the front end. Unless it's pure web, then it'll be JSF. And ADF is an implementation, but JSF is the standard.
So the languages on the VM seems to always kind of be paired with the DSL conversation, and we've had some really good conversations the last couple of days on Flex's role. You want to try and recap what you've been just trying to suggest that Flex can do for you in this?
Yeah, I think one of the things we were talking about was Flex is essentially a platform that allows you to build DSLs for UIs. And Bruce has even said that Flex is a DSL for building UIs. I think it's even broader than that, that it's a platform that allows you to build your own DSLs for UIs pretty easily. And I think that this is an interesting, if this is really true, this is an interesting shift in how we look at DSLs, how we look at how we build UIs, how we look at productivity for people building very large applications. Because the typical way that we've always done this is through model-driven architectures, and that's been our way to rapidly build applications. But what if we had a way to create our own DSLs?
Very concise and domain specific.
Yeah. And
Can you give a concrete example of that? Because I understand the words, but I don't necessarily follow.
It's a lot of theory.
Why would you do a DSL for a specific UI? Just an example.
Yeah, so there's this company that I know of.
What the fuck are you talking about?
We're not going to edit that out. So.
I know.
That's great.
I love that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we're explicit on iTunes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, up there with Jay-Z.
Right, that's it. That's all I'm going to drop. Just one F-bomb.
No, you can drop all you want. I don't care. Yeah, so a specific example of this is that there's a company that is building the interfaces for hospitals. So every system in a hospital uses this Flex UI. And it's a thousands of screens type of application.
Okay.
And so their domain is, around patients and orders and, all these sorts of things.
A lot of the pieces of the UI are all the same kind of things.
Right.
Is it modularized, like componentized?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah. It's all. So what they've done is they've extended Flex and made it so that less skilled developers can just whip out these UIs extremely quickly. And they get all the benefits of component composition. They get all the benefits of.
Is that all in text or in WYSIWYG?
They do it all in text, actually. They actually write code for
So
it.
they
So it's
need
not
to
a
do
graphical
But it's
DSL.
very
It's
simple,
actually
right? They're just saying, put the patient entry field
Yeah,
here.
totally.
this,
Yep,
this,
exactly.
So it's replacement for sort of more generic markup saying component type equals patient. They're saying
Right.
patient.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So is it a long?
And there's certain things that have to be standardized according to the UI
Right.
specs, and they're just done right
Yep.
for them. Right?
Yeah,
So they don't have to
exactly.
repeat that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and
It's almost like a special. What is the word? Not
specialized. Yeah,
I want to say SST, and that's the wrong thing. A DTD, or what's the more interesting
Or like
DTD?
transformation.
Nah.
No.
You can either use a DTD for XML or a
Schema.
schema. So it
Yeah,
sounds like a
right.
specialized schema, effectively for the
Yep.
declarative part of that.
Yep.
Well, like
script.
you could, if you're working in an XML domain, you could do a schema and
Right.
then do an XSLT to transform it
Right.
into the
Into
real
your
language,
action script.
expand it.
Right.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty interesting. What we're beginning to see a lot of what people have been talking about for a while with DSLs kind of being applied to how to more rapidly create very large applications, and I think Scala will actually play a big part of that as well, because it seems like, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but that Scala also opens up the opportunity to be this platform for building DSLs for our back-end systems, especially.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't played with DSLs in Scala yet. I play with them in Groovy because the dynamic nature of Groovy makes that really easy.
Right, but even Scala allows you to redefine what anything does, right? So you can say like a dot operator on this thing does this, and,
Right, and
and
methods
plus
can be
does this,
invoked
and
either infix or like a function call. So you can actually
Right.
put the method as if it were an operator.
right.
So then you end up with like a language grammar that you
So
can just read.
yeah,
left
so
to right.
so the grammar that you can create in Scala definitely becomes compelling for building custom DSLs.
The thing that makes me really nervous about those in general, and maybe this is a comment about all DSLs, is by doing that, you're over specializing the need for your engineers in your organization and decreasing their more generic value in another organization / upping your training curve for bringing people in. So if you build stuff in a standard way, like the example we were just using,
Yeah.
we're
We're not looking for general developers to be the ones writing this code. We're looking for developers that have been trained specifically to write this
Right.
DSL code. And yeah, I mean,
So it's like
it is
employee
unfortunate.
lock-in is the
You're going to have to
Right.
train everybody that comes in, right? Because they're
Yeah.
not going to know it. But it should
But
be,
if
if
you
it's well
use-
designed for the domain, it's going to be very simple. The amount of the mismatch between what you're trying to describe in the language should be very minimal. Right?
Yeah.
But I would lean towards don't do a full DSL, just have shorthands. A DSL is just forms of shorthand for stuff that you're actually training them. So the example we were just using, you show people, okay, this is what the markup looks like for this patient thing. You have a component here, type equals patient, or you could just type patient. It's a shorthand we put in place for you.
Right.
So that they're learning the generic mechanism for assembling stuff, and they can use that. Then there's all these shorthands, which is effectively the DSL. That way, you're training them skills that they can use for all sorts of things other than just this one app. You can get people on board really quick because they'll recognize the system. Like, oh, these are all custom components. Great, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
can
might
do
work if you're basically looking at taking programmers and specializing them. But on the other hand, a lot of times the people that are doing the work aren't programmers and they don't really care to learn how to program at all. They're a domain expert maybe in science or medicine
Yeah,
or
that's fair.
business or accounting, right?
And they're not going to go get another job
They don't wanna
programming
become
something else.
professionals.
Right. They just say, okay,
Right.
I know how to do accounting and I know, this
See, that
is
makes
what I
more
want to say.
sense.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Well, I really like the UI example, and you were telling us about on the way over. You're doing configuration management that
Yeah.
way. I feel like when I sit through a talk on DSL, it's so kind of like, well, that's great, but I don't
very
feel like I
nebulous,
gained
right?
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hearing those real
It
examples,
has to be case by case.
Yeah,
yeah,
my
it gets
case-
me over the hump because I have a lot
Yeah.
of the same concerns that you just articulated.
Yeah.
In my case, I wanted something that was very declarative and nested, sort of like maybe a JSON structure or XML. A lot of people do this in XML. But I decided to do it in Groovy and using the builder pattern with its DSL. And it was very nice because it ends up looking sort of like a pretty JSON.
God appears when Carl starts talking.
Every single time.
Well,
You
build-
gotta put the glasses
So it just
back on.
Groovy looked a lot like what I wanted in the output, and it just made it really easy.
And build is a place I never thought of it before, but it's a great one because normally I'm like, why do I care about hiding the implementation details? But in build, that sounds phenomenal because
Yeah.
it gets so obnoxious to go through these
You don't want to
massive
say exactly
XML
how
files.
to do things or how they
Yeah.
should be implemented or what order things happen. You just want to say, and the end result I want my app and services to be deployed this way, this many machines, load balanced. Just do it.
Yeah, and in some ways we might even be able to look at Ant's XML language as a DSL for builds. It may not be a great one, but it kind of is one.
There's a groovy one. I can't remember which one it is.
love the
Gant or
name.
Gradle.
The name Ant,
Ant.
like,
Ant's build things.
hand to those guys.
Yeah.
That's just absolutely awesome. Could have been bees. Ants is even better.
Ant. I like Ant.
Yeah.
XML, you gotta have to kind of get used to the XML, but they do a good job of keeping their XML lean.
I just meant the name.
The name. Yeah, and the little icon is an ant. That's good too.
Guys, we wish we had more time.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
12,
We're out of time. We
40
didn't even get to
something.
talk about anything
gotta go.
interesting.
I know. I really wanted to ask you why you don't write code, because
We
it's
should
my
pick it up
ambition to
again
never
in a
write
bar.
code.
Oh, I can answer that very, very quickly, actually. I've written enough code for all of you.
So I have 2 more years and I'm done. I'm out.
I don't know. I don't know how many years you've
Is it lines of
been in.
code? Is it the things the code does? I mean, what's the measure?
Number of bytes
Good.
of byte
Well, actually,
code per
I
day.
can do this. A lot of people. I'm gonna try to do this really condensed. You can slap me if it gets too long. I'm ready.
You can just head
Not
on
a punch,
out.
a slap.
That, yeah. Oh.
A lot of people write code and in great volumes to achieve what's called flow. This is literally it's an addiction, and a lot
Yep.
of engineers have this. That personality types has a tendency.
Tor flows all the time.
Tor is a flowist.
Can't you get regular with like ginseng or?
Yeah.
But the idea is they sit down, they start working on something, and they get into this method of flow, which is really, or this state of flow, which is a really easy thing to get into in writing software,
Yeah,
and it's addictive.
it's
It
important
really,
to get
really
into it if you're.
Well, any good
Yeah, if you wanna
professional
get things done.
that's
Right.
creating things or doing work, when they really
Right.
love what they do, that's sort of where they get their
Right.
zone, right? the
Yeah,
flow.
we talked a lot about this at the roundup session, which I think is published, about shifting between management and engineering. A lot of people that did engineering, like myself, a lot, and shift into management start to really like miss it. They don't
Yeah.
get these long periods of flow, and you start, your addiction's not being serviced. So if you don't find something else to do that services that, you end up being shitty at management and getting back into being a coder.
For many other reasons
Yeah.
too. I was
But
reading.
have lots of other things that I do that give me flow.
Yeah.
More
So
creative, artistic.
Yeah, a lot
and
of creative
design,
stuff,
yeah.
a lot of racing
Sick.
cars and all that sort of stuff. So I'm very, very happy and don't feel like I need to do that. Though I definitely enjoyed it while I was doing it, but I have so many other things that give me that I mean, I am really happy just designing software. And my flow moments now, sitting in a chair, other than other stuff, my flow moments are like coming up with a really, really cool multi-layer Photoshop document to do a lens flare on a windshield of a car on the hover state of a button. I mean, I have so much fun doing that.
Yeah, so coding can release endorphins.
Yeah,
I never really thought about it that way.
absolutely. And it really does.
Yeah.
It's a drug. You're all drug addicts.
Stay off drugs. Don't do drugs.
Don't
coding
do
instead.
illegal
That's
drugs.
it. Drunk
Do
on
legal
software.
drugs.
Yeah.
Gotta speak for our Boulder-based software company. Do the illegal drugs, not the.
All right, with that, thanks for watching. Thanks, Joe and Carl, for being on.
Yeah. And listen to javaposse.com.
Yes, javaposse.com. The link will be down below.
Yeah, it's right there.
Right there,
It's right there.
somewhere.
Thanks.
Thanks.